Now available for the first time in paperback. Why 70% of black women are single. Learn all the reasons why so many black women can't find a husband and why 70% of black women are single. Get your copy of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com today.
One of my viewers wanted me to talk about a report from the Violence Policy Center called When Men Murder Women, an analysis of 2018 homicide data in conjunction with a live stream that Dennis Sperling was presenting. Now, attorney Dennis Sperling was presenting a live stream talking about a modern bonnet woman who was making a video in her vehicle, and as she was making this video in her vehicle, she was ranting about how black men were the face of violence and went out here talking about how black men lead the nation in murder, which your Dennis Sperling basically refuted by using the statistics in said report. Now, as I listened to this black woman make these claims about black men being the face of crime and violence, I had to shake my head because there clearly is something extremely disturbing about this woman for her to go on in this emotional tirade like this. Now, many of the statements that this black woman made basically sounded like a white supremacist, and I was wondering why YouTube didn't go out here and have their team take this woman's video down for hate speech, because the YouTube team will go out here and attack a black man's channel whenever he tries to present facts as related to topics from objective sources. However, this woman going on in this rant like this basically was hate speech, and the way she was making her rants about black men were completely unfounded and unsubstantiated claims. This is what YouTube will allow to remain on their platform, but if a black man goes out here and rebuts her in an intelligent manner like Dennis Sperling or myself would do, YouTube's team would go out here looking to go out here and flag that video, and that shows us a dangerous double standard as Mr. Sperling presented in his video, because when you have a black woman going out here and pushing hateful rhetoric like this, what it does is this gives your white supremacists all of the excuse to go out here and believe they have a right to perpetrate violence on black men. And as I was sitting there listening to the tirade that this black woman was going on in, it just shows me how poisoned many of these black women's minds are as related to the single mother households and white feminism's impact on those households. Now, these single mother households, they teach a culture of misandry to their children, and the daughters learn to not trust men because of the bad experience the mother has, and as that mother's experience turns into bitterness, and it leads to the women learning how to hate black men, and that hatred makes them basically start sounding like white supremacists, and that just shows us how white feminism comes full circle, because your feminist is a white female white supremacist, and that's basically what many black women have become, because much of the rhetoric they say, like the woman did in the video that the viewer sent me, sounds just like that of a white supremacist. And if this were a white woman, like Dennis Sperling said in his own video, this woman would have been removed from YouTube for hate speech, but this black woman is allowed on YouTube, and that's a troubling double standard, because you have a woman out here making statements that are anti-black, which show her self-hatred and promote hatred of black men, and also give ammunition to white supremacists to go out here and be able to feel justified in attacking black men. And as the Dennis Sperling goes on and refutes her and rebuts her with statistics from the When Men Murder Women report, which was presented from the Violence Policy Center, it pretty much proves the point that black men are not the face of crime and violence like this woman wants to say in her video. No, what it states is that many of these murders of black women usually take place by people that they know, and a lot of those cases are started with arguments. Now, one of the things that they were making the point of, again, in the report, is that most of these women are murdered by men that they know. And this is something I found in my own research when I was writing my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, in 2013. And it was also what I found when I was doing my research for my book, The Woman Crisis. Because most of the murders that take place as related to black women winding up losing their lives is they wind up losing their lives to someone they know. And a lot of times when you have black women, when they become a victim of violence, it's sometimes because they usually get involved with these low-life guys like your Pookies and your Ray Rays or your Hood Wolves. And because they go out here and keep company with violent individuals, they wind up losing their lives in violent manners. Moreover, a lot of these women, they go out here and they're very aggressive and masculine acting. And when they go out here and get aggressive and masculine acting, they go out here and look to start arguments with men in the hopes of, one, crap testing those men in the hopes of making those men submit to them, or two, they go out here and start arguments in order to get some attention or some drama. And sometimes this is what leads to a lot of these women winding up pushing a man's buttons. And because they're dealing with Pookies and Ray Rays, this in some cases pushes these guys too far. And this is a point I also make in my book, The Woman Crisis, in the section Domestic Violence and the Woman Crisis, how many of the domestic violence incidents in this country these days are not started by men. No, a lot of the domestic violence here in America is started by women. And because it's started by women, usually it leads to it escalating because many of these women do not know when to just go out here and let the man back away. And I talk about this also in Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. They don't know when to back away because they have to get the last word in, and sadly the last word in is the word that leads to them pushing a man too far. And with these beta males, you don't have to push but so far, because these men will explode in rage, and that's when they participate in the spectrum of violent behaviors. And that's what happens in a lot of cases of these women. And also, as the Dennis Sperling show went on, they talked about these statistics further as related to these women and the homicides that they wind up being a victim of. And some of these homicides also are done by Mr. Clean, also known as the white man, and non-black men that many women who call themselves swirling are getting in relationships with. In these relationships, these women also go out of their way to crap test these white men or these non-black men. They push their buttons, and they push these men too far, and that's what sadly leads to them winding up in the shadow realm, because they do not know where the boundary is. And this also happens in some cases with black women with other black women, and that was another significant majority of the homicides that were presented, that you have black women taking the lives of other black women and sending them to the shadow realm because somebody has a better looking Gucci bag, somebody has the new Fendi shoes, somebody has got nicer hair, or we get an incident like what happened with Shakella Robinson. We've got individuals who get jealous of another black woman's success, and as a result, these women look to go out here and participate in the murder of another woman. So a lot of these statistics are out here and are presented in this Violence Policy Center report. And as they're presented in this report, which was an analysis of 2018 homicide data, it basically proves the point that the black man is not the face of crime and violence. No, the face of crime and violence is far more different than what you hear many of these black female YouTubers who are out here presenting, like this woman who in that video Dennis Sperling was deconstructing. No, in many cases, these women will sit here and try to make it like the black man is the face of crime and violence, but in the actual face of crime and violence is not the average everyday brother. No, the face of violence in most cases, as related to black women, are the guys that they get involved with, or the sisters that they're out here spending company with. They will sit there and say, oh, it's the black man, but no, most of these women hang out with either Mr. Clean, Pookie, or Ray Ray, or some other non-black guy, and then they want to say that it's black men as a collective who are the ones inflicting all of this violence, but they don't want to go out here and look at the data, which shows that these black men are not the ones out here inflicting violence on black women. No, it's the company that they keep, and that company that they keep is one of the reasons why so many are losing their lives, because many of these women have serious daddy issues, and those daddy issues have them choosing the most dysfunctional men to be around, and because they're insecure, they go out here looking to pick fights with these men because they don't know what boundaries are, because they never had a father in their life or a mother in their life to go out here and establish boundaries with them. And they never had a mother to establish boundaries to show them to respect another woman's property. And that's why we see so many jealous women murdering women like Shankella Robinson, because they have a deep-seated hatred of another woman, and they're envious of the attention and success another woman has. So that's another reason why we see all of these homicides going on with black women. And we also see them also talking about, this woman also talked about how black men kill their children. And in a previous video, I already refuted that narrative, because black men aren't the ones who have time, aren't really put in to spend time with their children. They don't have custody of their children. I mean, and most black men, 52% of black men don't even have children. So the main perpetrator in the deaths of black children are either neglectful single mothers or abusive single mothers, but they won't talk about that in their videos because that doesn't fit the narrative, because you've got a lot of toxic black females who have been filled with a lot of hate, as I see it, from listening to a lot of this anti-black male misandrist rhetoric that has been perpetrated in the black community ever since, I say, about the 1970s, when you had women like your Alice Walker pushing books like The Color Purple, and going out here misinterpreting books like Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Are Watching God. We have had and the Oprah Winfrey Show and many other shows demonizing black men. They have tried to make black men the face of crime and violence, and what's scary is that everything coming out of some of these black women's mouths on social media sounds just like a white supremacist used to sound like at one of these Ku Klux Klan meetings. That is the most troubling thing for me when I was sitting there watching that Dennis Sperling video, was watching black women who sounded like they were straight out of a Ku Klux Klan meeting, because listening to that woman out here in her car ranting, that was extremely troubling. She sounded more like a Ku Klux Klan member than a black woman. And again, we've got so many of these women on social media, and what's really troubling is that these women, they're in a gender war, and they're promoting what is misinformation. And we have all this talk about misinformation as related to America, but this misinformation is allowed on platforms like YouTube. I mean, you have black women sitting there talking about aborting black male babies, talking about black men being the face of crime, and these are white supremacist talking points, but YouTube won't see them as the hate speech that they are. No, when a black man makes a criticism of a black woman, you want to take the video down and put strikes on the channel. But when you have an individual going out here and making anti-black racist talking points, and they are a black woman, they are given a pass. And that is something that is extremely disturbing, because this individual clearly is sick. And what I saw in that video was just complete sickness. But thankfully, you had guys like Dennis Sperling and many other black men out here to do what I've been doing for years, and that is refuting these narratives with facts and data. And that's what I put in books that I write, like Why 70% of Black Women Are Single and The Woman Crisis, because I want people to have the facts as related to what these women are trying to argue in their videos, and show you that there is actual facts to prove a counterpoint that shows that most of that information they are presenting are lies. Because again, when many of these women sadly wind up losing their lives, yes, it's because it's someone they know. And many of these women keep really bad company, like Pookie and Ray Ray, and they go out here and get involved with the lowest forms of life in the case of white and non-black men. And they also go out here and are jealous of other women. And this is why so many are sent to the shadow realm in that statistic as related to the number of homicides as related to black women. So when I looked at the report and I looked at the live stream that the viewer wanted to present me, it's just like everything I presented in my own research when I'm writing books like Why 70% of Black Women Are Single and The Woman Crisis. And we need to use hard facts. And this is a point that I made in my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace. Whenever you're dealing with a woman who is making allegations, you need to have facts to back you up. Because when you have facts, you have a paper trail to prove your point. And when you have a paper trail to prove your point, this woman cannot go out here and make an allegation against you based on her feelings. No, she has no facts to back her up. And without facts to back her up, she loses all credibility. And people see her for the just completely insane person she is. Because when I looked at that video and I listened to that woman, it was all emotion, it was all feelings, and not a single fact to back it up. And with it having no facts to back it up, she basically looked like an Arkham certified individual who was deeply traumatized and really needed help, because only a person who is either a white supremacist or completely Arkham certified is going to sit here and go out here and try to make it look like black men are the face of crime, black men are the face of violence, and black men look to hurt everybody. This woman basically had turned black men into a black brute and basically saw a black man in the same way a white supremacist saw a black man. And it just shows me how deep the sickness is in some of these sisters who really show me that they need a 72-hour hold, because they've been listening to so much hateful stuff on stuff like Alice Walker's Color Purple, Lee Daniels' Precious, Monsters Ball, Oprah Winfrey. They've just been imbibing so much dark media that they don't see anything objectively anymore. And that's why you've got to be very careful about the media you imbibe, because the media you imbibe can become you. And it's clear to me that some of these BWs have been in an echo chamber for too long, and they're starting to believe everything that they see and hear on these platforms about black men, and they're not really looking at it through an objective perspective. And that really shows us how dark and twisted some of these VWs are, and how many of them just desperately need some help. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can send a donation to the Cash App, and if I know something about that subject, I will make that video for you. And if you want to pick up some of the books I mentioned on the SJS Direct imprint, like Why 70% of Black Women Are Single and The Woman Crisis, to learn the truth about many of these points that many of these black women are talking about, you can pick up those books and get an objective perspective on these issues and many of the things that many people are talking about as related to why many of our women out here are struggling right now. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.